All right, welcome to the franchise time machine. Max LP80, perfect timing. Entering the chat just as I'm getting started. Hope you had a good PTCS run there, Max. I had my best ever, I think. Uh, got to the fourth round of an iron, which I think is the deepest I've ever gone in a PTCS. Had a third round, a second round, and all the rest were first round knockouts. But I think, Max, I think I saw you streaming for a while, so I'm hoping you made a pretty deep run today. Round four in silver, lost to the number one seed. All right, good job, man. I mean, after making a round four run, I'm like, that's a long time, especially in like best of nine. Two round threes, awesome, and a round two. That's great. That's way better than me. I had four first round knockouts. I mean, my weekly entry was kind of ridiculous. It was not weekly draft, just weekly. So it was like an open cap tournament. I'm sure I was playing against all kinds of perfect cards and like fully boosted iron cards. So Max took the number one to the full 9 games. That's great. I mean, people say there are no moral victories, but I would count that as a big time moral victory. I've done that to. I took I-75 homers to a game 7 in a iron tournament, and he's fully combinated. And I, I mean, I didn't get the packs for it, but I mean, I didn't get the packs for it. I still got packs for it, but I still consider taking him to game 7 as a pretty big win. So, um, here's what we're gonna do today. Bronze got swept by Mr. Audit. Mr. Audit is a great player, man. No shame in getting swept by Mr. Audit. Wear that as a badge of honor. Um, so let's do a quick spin through what we did the last few streams here because I think it's pretty interesting and I wanted to build on it tonight. So was it last night already? Jeez, feels like forever ago. Um, kind of as a PTCS prep, I wanted to see um how much HRA matters. So home runs allowed, how much that matters in 1922, specifically in the Polo Grounds. Um, as part of prepping for PTCS and building rosters, I saw a lot of, not a lot, but I saw several streamers leaning pretty hard into low HRA cards with the rationale that it's a low home run era, and so it was like a safer place to play them. I was so don't get me wrong, I was doing that a little bit too. I lowered my cutoff for HRA into the low 60s, which I normally don't do. For iron into the 50s because there just aren't as many good pitcher cards in iron. Um, but then I started to think, okay, we can figure this out. We can get a better sense of like how much does HRA matter in 1922 in the Polo Grounds because we have all the information we need and we can we can do the experiment. And I think it was Clay Dog last night who said he hears lots of people rationalizing their conclusions about how the game works based on how actual baseball works. And I've seen the same thing. It didn't really crystallize for me until Clay Dog said it that way. And for the most part, I don't think any of them ever cited anything about the game works like real baseball works in that particular case, whatever they're talking about. He had a great example of someone saying that um, they turn down the hold runners because they don't want their starting pitchers to fatigue throwing over to first base. Now, maybe in real life that happens, but like we have no indications that the game is set up to do that. And but this is something we could test for. So we did a test last night um, to test for because we have this experimental environment. And here's what we found. We found a few interesting things. The relative impact in terms of like what happens to your home runs allowed as you go from elite HRA to average HRA to below average ERA proportionally is the same regardless of era. When you go from elite to average, your home runs allowed basically go 10x. When you go from average to below average, you go to 2 or 3x. But when you go from below average to terrible, it actually doesn't get that much worse. And so there were a lot of things in there that helped inform how I chose my rosters for PTCS. In fact, I went and redid my bronze rosters after doing that experiment. Now in 1922, there's just fewer home runs hit. So the pain of 10x or 2 to 3x is less because it's 10x on a smaller base, it's 2 to 3x on a smaller base. But it's still there. And so the notion that HRA doesn't matter in 1922 in the Polo Grounds, frankly, just seemed incorrect. But it might be correct in a true dead ball era and a true dead ball environment. So that's what we're going to test tonight. Because there are a couple issues, right, with applying dead ball rationale to the PTCS format. PTCS was in 1922. Dead ball is 19. I've seen sources say 1900 to 1919 or 1901 to 1919. Now maybe those 3 years don't matter, but if you look at the stats, they kind of do matter. And my understanding is there's actually changes with the ball itself, right, that took place that are going to change things as you go over from 1919 into the 20s. So let's just go deep into the dead ball era. Let's do 1901. And then the other thing is the Polo Grounds has a pretty high home run factor. It's over 1.2. So let's just go back to the generic completely average ballparks that we have in our completely average league. Let's just take everything back to 1. Because we're done with PTCS. It was a really good experiment. It helped us kind of figure out some things, right? And I think that the takeaway essentially was you probably don't need to spend on elite home run suppression in PTCS because that base is so small. But you don't want to go below a certain threshold that people seem to be going over in some of their roster building streams. So for me personally, I raised my threshold for HRA. I've been saying, okay, if HRA doesn't matter, then I'm just going to go with control and PBABIP. But after this experiment, I was like, okay, HRA does still matter. It just matters a little less. And so I took my threshold down, but I kept the threshold. And then if I'm thinking about it in terms of weighting, it wasn't like equal weight across. It was less weight to HRA, but still some weight. And then some weight to PBABIP, but most of the weight to control. And in some of the post PTCS streams I've been hearing, I'm hearing some chatter that like control did seem to matter a lot this PTCS. I haven't looked at the data yet, so I don't know. But from the experiments, I was like, yeah, okay. HRA still does matter. Matters more than I had been giving it credit for. So I am interested to see, does it matter in 1901? When you nerf the power that much, maybe it doesn't. There's a lot about the PTCS that just made it not true dead ball. So I'm still curious to see what happens when we take everything to 1901. We'll also do a 10-pack giveaway. It'll be a very similar form to the one we used last night. We're just going to run it in 1901 instead. So let me pull that up. I'll actually launch it. Let's finish that form up and launch it to now so that people can start answering it. Let me make a copy and then I'll share it so you can see what I'm editing. Let me catch up on chat too. Hold on, let me get this on screen first. Okay. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention is, yeah. So we ran that experiment last night in 2023 in a neutral ballparks, and then again, same setup, same everything, except 1922 run environment. Um, oh, the other interesting that happened, we need to talk about this. I'm gonna actually check this out maybe tonight, or if not tonight, tomorrow. When you change the run environment in the game, there's a section where when you change it, it changes all the managerial settings too. And when you go change it to 1922, the rotation size is still 5, which does not align with that slide that gets shared all over the place whenever there's like a PTCS or there's a new cycle and there are new players being introduced to tournament play. Um, but the 5, I think, also does not necessarily align with the statistics, right? The number of pitchers that were getting games started. I don't think there are 5 on most teams. I'll have to double check that against in BREF. And so we were playing around with that, and I think it didn't go down to 4 until the 19 teens, right? When you're an actual dead ball. And it didn't get down to 3 until the early 1900s, I think. Like, that's one of the things I want to do today or tomorrow is go back to that setting and keep changing it and basically track it. Maybe we'll graph it to show, okay, that slide that everyone shares and is very useful, that says one thing. But the base game, the assumptions of the base game are this. And I'm not saying one is wrong or right. I'm just saying the slide says one thing, the base game saying another thing. Now, I guess I should maybe backtrack. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but if the game engine thinks that's right, then maybe in the game that's going to be right. I don't know. That's probably another experiment we have to do. But we can actually I think we'll have time to check that tonight. Um, we have the quick start already set up for this experiment. I think we'll have time to do it. So here is here's the form I'll be finishing up and sharing so that y'all can enter the 10-pack giveaway. Let's see. Max says Iron took out a full L5 team in round 2. That's always fun. It happens to me rarely, but when it does, it's so sweet. L5 team is a fully combinated team for those of you newer to the game. It's still around in open. It was heavy PBAB control. Yeah, so Max, did you ignore HRA completely? Because there were some roster builders I saw who were like picking, okay. Yeah, so I would say like the data we got last night would say not to ignore HRA, but to kind of lower your threshold for it. Although I will say in favor of ignoring HRA, the data also says if you're going to dip below like 60 for HRA, you can dip down to 30 and it's not going to matter too much. That was like a big eye opener for me that the 250 HRA teams pitchers did not actually give up that many more home runs than the 100 HRA. So, you have some of these cards that people were playing that had like 100 control, 100 PBABIP, and like 30 HRA. Um, Based on last night's data, you could argue that that's just as good as a 160 pitcher, um, because you've already gone down the cliff of HRA. But anyway, I think it will be different when we do it tonight in 1901. I think because it'll be much more true dead ball run environment. So let's update this. We're going to be in 1901. The other caveat is we were testing with raw movement, um, which is different, but it's definitely related to HRA. All right, so we're going to do it in 1901 with neutral 1.00 ballpark factors. We're going to go back to average ballpark. And we've already simulated in 2023 and 1922 Polo Grounds. You sent me your bronze and silver builds. Awesome. Um, yeah, I'll be curious to see how far you took that ignoring HRA thing. That's the first thing I did too. That's why I had to go back and rebuild my bronze pitching staffs after doing that experiment. Get a sense of how raw movement values of 100, 250, 400, and 550 translate into 1901 MLB stats. I already did that part. Experimental details, 1901. Okay, so the first question was the league leader in home runs allowed will pitch for which team? So basically, they'll have a raw movement of what? 100, 250, 400, or 550. Tiebreaker one, the league leader in ERA will pitch for which team? And tiebreaker two, how many pitchers down the HRA leader list? Oh, you know what? You know what's a good one to put in here? Before this one, I want to put another one here. Um, let's copy this. Tiebreaker two. How many HRA? How many home runs will be given up by the league leader in HRA? I'm putting leader in quotation marks because it's a dubious distinction, right? It's the most home runs given up. And let me see if I can give you all a number on how many that was in 2023. I think I took a screenshot of that. Okay, yeah, I did. HRA 2023. It was 58. And do I have that same number for 1922? I think I do. it was 39. And that's another good example of why I went back and redid my pitching staffs because 58 to 39 is a nerfing, but I don't think it was the nerfing that a lot of people were expecting. Okay. So I think that'll be good. This is now tiebreaker number 3. So tiebreaker 3 was fun. It was we just stack ranked the home runs allowed, and we just looked down the list to see how far we had to go before a pitcher from Team 400 showed up on the list. Okay, Max says he didn't ignore HRA as much as he thought, but it wasn't a priority. Check. That's probably like my initial approach to Max, and then I went back and reprioritized it a little bit based on what we found here. I mean, that change from 58 to 39 is definitely nerf, but I mean, 38 is not nothing. And that as much as anything, I think, influenced my decision to go back. And now I think that number is going to be, I mean, not to give away anything for the contest, but I do think it's going to be a lot lower this time around. All right, so let me put that survey or form in the chat. Link to contest form for 10-pack giveaway. Okay, let me pin that in the chat. Perfect. All right, feel free to get your guesses in as we do this. And we'll go ahead and get into the base game. And let's do this. Oh, dang it. Thank you, Max. Open the form. Always forgetting to open the form. Hey, AW, what's up? We're revisiting our test from last night. We did 1922 Polo Grounds because of PTCS. I want to see what happens when we go true dead ball. We're going to go 1901, uh, neutralized ballpark factors. Everything will be 1 on the ballparks. And basically pretty much the same questions as last night for the pack giveaway. But the one that's added is Laptop Hound. Thank you so much for the raid. I enjoyed your post PTCS stream tonight. I was watching quite a bit of it tonight. So welcome, Raiders. We are. Let me just give you a recap of what we're doing here. Last night we did an experiment to see how much home runs allowed matter in 1922. Right, that's where this started last night. Part of it was I selfishly wanted to inform my roster building for PTCS. The run environment is 1922. The ballpark is Polo Grounds. And so we did this test in 2023 as a baseline, and then in 1922 in the Polo Grounds as the experimental version, and also to kind of help me decide what to do about these pitching staffs for PTCS. It was also inspired by, I am so selfish, AW. It was also inspired by seeing quite a few streamers doing roster builds and seeing such a wide degree to which they were ignoring or not ignoring home runs allowed based on the run environment. I think some people were leaning pretty hard into not caring about HRA because it's 1922. And then others were, oh yeah, Max, thank you for shouting out Laptop Hound. And others were pretty much still, rostering as if it was almost like modern era ish. And I wanted to see like, okay, where do I want to stand based on what the experiment tells us. So we used our completely average league, which we use for a lot of our experiments, where every player is standardized and um, completely average, as close to average as possible. Oh, and there's a link to a contest form pinned to the chat. So if you just rated in, uh, check that out. It has details on what we're doing tonight, and then a few questions where you guess the outcome. Oh, geez. Okay, hold on. Everyone stop. I think Smiley Face Jane is probably right. I was copying pasting from the forum. So hold on a sec. I may have to relaunch the forum. Hold on. Hold on. This time I actually am going to close the forum for a second. I Max caught me again launching the forum unopened, which I do all the time. This time I'm actually going to close it. Um, yes, I believe you are right. So what's the best way to do this? I'm going to copy this as a new form. It'll be episode 102-1. By the way, we had our 100th episode, y'all. Don't forget to open the form when done. I will probably forget that by the time I get to that stage. Let me unpin the form that's up there now. Oh, how do I unpin? Oh, here we go. Unpin this message. Okay. All right. All right. Let's see. 2 and 4 are the same. Probably correct. Let's see. Tiebreaker 2. Tiebreaker 4. Yes. Yes. 2 has more information in now, but that is correct. That is essentially the same question. So I'm going to delete tiebreaker 4. Okay. So now, let me get the new link. Let me shorten the URL. Let me copy that bad boy. Now, before I even put it in the chat, I'm going to open the form. The form is now open. You're pinning open the form. Okay, revised link. No, link to, the link isn't right. Link to revised form for tonight's 10-pack giveaway. It is open, but it's a new form, so you don't have the link yet. Okay, here's the link to the open form. It's a new form. Okay. Smiley Face Jane, thank you for catching the error. Everybody in the stream, thank you for your patience. And thank you to OOTP Developments for the 10 packs that we're going to give away tonight based on this experiment. Um, and you do not have to be present to win. So feel free to enter a form and take off, crash, go to bed, dream about your PTCS performance. You do not have to be present to win. I asked you for your OTP login ID. My understanding, it is case sensitive, so please make sure your capitalization is correct. And we will send you your packs regardless of whether you're here or not when we finish up. Why do I want AW to have PTCS nightmares? Couldn't have been that bad, could it, AW? Um, and look, I'm not going to say this HRA experiment is why this happened, but I did have my deepest run in PTCS ever. I made it to the 4th round of Iron, and also had a 3rd round in Iron. So, yeah, I can't say it's because of this, but um, I felt pretty good putting those rosters together after having done this experiment. So anyway, we ran this in 2022 in the Polo Grounds, and I kind of think maybe what was happening is some people were treating it as if it's a dead ball situation and just ignoring HRA completely. But I think my understanding of Smiley Face Jane is this: the PTCS cards go out on Monday for the first two rounds. Oh, I don't know about the others. I haven't checked. I'm not used to having others than the first two rounds, so I don't know. Um, but here's a couple reasons why I think it's worth redoing this in 1901. So first of all, 1922 is not really dead ball. Ignore that. Dead ball is correct. Um, most sources I see define dead ball as 1900 to 1919 or 1901 to 1919. Um, in particular, I think there was actually a physical change with the ball also that happened around 1919, 1920 that helped make that era change. The other thing is the Polo Grounds has a pretty high home run modifier. So you have an era that's not quite dead ball, and you have a home run promoting park. So I want to see what happens with this when we do it in full on 1901 with neutral ballpark factors, um, and see if we get different conclusions than we did last night. And so here are the conclusions we had last night. Max, sorry, you're gonna have to sit through this twice because I want to get the Raiders up to date. And again, you have to keep in mind all of our experiments, right? They're small sample sizes. We run full seasons. We get two sample sizes because we have an AL and an NL that don't play against each other. So they're kind of independent experiments. And we ignore the standings now because there's too much noise in the standings. You have average relief pitchers in the mix. You have RNG in the mix. You have all kinds of just natural variability in the mix. So we look at the pitching stats, and I think that's worked out much better and has given us more clear conclusions. But what we learned about 1922 in the Polo Grounds and home run allowed compared to 2023, in either era, we saw the same pattern of what happens to your home runs allowed as your home run suppression. In perfect team, that would be HRA. In the base game, it's raw movement, which contributes to HRA. As you go from elite to average, you see about a 10x increase in your home runs allowed. As you go from average to below average, you see a 2 to 3x increase. Now, that 10x, you have to understand, that's from going to like God level raw movement to major league average. And one of the things we've learned over and over in these experiments is the move from average to God level is not linear. It's a huge leap. And to give you an idea, this is the one I use all the time. 2001 Barry Bonds, who hit 73 home runs, he's not even 550 power. He's, I think, 520 power. Right. And so as you go further and further out towards 550, it's not linear. It just goes through the roof. So that 10x is not that crazy because it's an almost unrealistic level of elite HRA. But anyway, there's a 10x jump as you come down from 550 to 400. Then a 2 to 3x jump as you drop down from 400 to 250. One of the interesting things is you don't really go that much higher as you go from below average to terrible, as you go from 250 to 100. So that's something. If you're going to throw a 40 or a 50 HRA pitcher out there, you might as well throw out a 30 because it's not going to hurt that much more. And those ratios were true in 2023 and 1922. It was actually very surprising to me that the ratios held that constant because the errors are so different. Another thing to keep in mind, though, in 1922, you're doing 10x and 2 to 3x on a much smaller base. So while the jump is the same, the pain that that's going to cause your team is less. And so from that perspective, yeah, maybe you can make an argument that you can potentially ignore HRA in that era. But I mean, do it at your own peril because these jumps are real. The other thing that was interesting, and well, I didn't make a slide for it, but the league leaders, it's alluded to in the form. So maybe I'll pull up the form. I'll show it to you there. Let me find that. So in tiebreaker number 2, let me put that up on the screen. All right, I gave you some information. In the 2023 sim, the pitcher that gave up the most home runs gave up 58. In the 1922 Polo Grounds or the PTCS simulation, the pitcher that gave up the most home runs gave up 39. Now, yes, 39 is a lot less than 58, but it's not nothing. It's still a lot of home runs. And so that also gave me pause to say, okay, I've been ignoring HRA too much in my PTCS roster build, and I went back and changed it. Now I want to see what happens in a true dead ball era. In a true dead ball era, maybe the difference does go away. I don't know, but we're gonna try to find out. All right, so let's go to the base game. And oh, we can just take a look at this. Oh no, that's a different game. We're gonna start a new game. We created a quick start for this. Now there's two quick starts. There's the one we use for the 2023, and there's the one we use for the 1922. The reason I saved the second quick start is because we went through a bit of effort to put in the ballpark multipliers for the Polo Grounds, which Smiley Face Jane provided to us. Thank you so much for that. But we're going to go back to neutral modifiers. So I think we'll go back to the first quick start. By the way, you'll notice these quick starts have been named by Claydog, who did a channel point redemption to name our quick start. So it was originally going to be named "Should I Roster Adam Dunn," but it didn't fit. So we just put "Roster Adam Dunn?" ? But it wouldn't accept the question mark, so it's just called "Roster Adam Dunn." So thank you, Claydog, for that channel point redemption. And your quick start name will now live forever in our folder here. Okay, so this is now going to be. Let me see what it's called. Hold on. What did we call this? I think it's HRA something. HRA. This will be HRA V3 1901. HRA V3 1901. Okay, Debbie said the later ones are out. So beyond rounds 1 and 2, those are out tonight. My understanding is the rounds 1 and 2, or maybe just the round one, those go out on Mondays. Okay, so this is our league. We've already renamed it. The pictures have already been updated. All we're going to do is we're going to change it to a different era other than 1901, and we're going to keep those ballpark factors. All right. And let's just make sure these ballpark factors are still ones. We'll just pick any one of these teams here. If you haven't done this here, once you go to team settings, you can just go to edit ballpark and you can change the distances to your fences and your factors. And one thing that was never clear to me is if I change this like to 250, does it change the factor automatically? No, it doesn't. So you can have a crazy 250-foot fence in center field, and it will still play as a standard center field home run if you leave the home run factor as 1. So I guess this is more. Is it just for the? Oh, that's what AutoCAD. Oh, so if I change it first and then oh yeah, there we go. So with my crazy 250-foot fence in center field, interesting. Okay, I put it back to 400. I think this is like when you Google Translate and then Google Translate, you'll always get something weird. So we're just going to manually go back to one. There we go. Everything's back to one now. Oh, wait, why did these change? What the heck is happening here? What? What is going on here? Oh, was it not originally 400? Is that the problem? Let's see what happens. I thought it was 400. What happens if I make that 395? No, that's worse. I broke my own autosave. Auto start. Quick start. Okay, this is as close as we can get apparently. I somehow broke the auto start. Oh wait, maybe I didn't. I thought I hit enter after all these. Let me try again. Enter. You see at the top it says hit enter after editing. This is one of the places. So if you don't know, a lot of times in editor, if you change a name of somebody, you have to hit enter or the change won't stick. Usually for the numbers, that's not the case. But on this page, it very clearly says hit enter after editing. And I may have forgotten to do that. Okay, now it's stuck. Now it's stuck. Okay. So I didn't break it. I just was being lazy. Okay. So all our ballpark factors are back to one. The one thing that it keeps changing back is it keeps undoing our do not disturb and it keeps changing back our inbox. So we're going to fix that real quick. And we have tried to save it as a quick start. And for some reason, these two changes just keep getting undone. Um, so we're just going to have to manually do it every time. I just have to remember to do it. Okay, then the other thing we're going to do is go back into the era settings. Okay, and we're going to change this to 1901. Now, keep an eye on things like the starting rotation size, the number of relievers, the number of position players, right? That's all going to change as we update this. Dead ball era. Here it's 1901 to 1920. That's interesting. Yeah, here we're down to a four-man rotation. Now, this is something interesting that we noticed last night. When we went to 1922 for these settings, it runs a five-man rotation. That's what's in the game. Now, that definitely does not agree with what's on that slide that gets shown around all the time, especially before PTCS, to help players and especially new players understand what some of the things that might change in the run environment of the tournament might be. And I think for 1922, it recommends three starting pitchers and five relievers, and you'll have high pitch counts. So this is definitely a big difference from that. And it was concerning because this is the the base game engine is supposed to be pretty similar to the perfect team game engine. And so if the base game engine is saying, yeah, general AI roster settings for 1922 or a 5-man rotation, that's very much at odds with what that slide said. So, and I'm not saying, one's right or wrong. I just think it's interesting that like the base game is saying 5 for that year. The other thing I wanted to check, and might as well do that on stream here, is in baseball reference. And let me show you what I'm checking out. We use this all the time. I mostly use baseball reference because the player IDs in baseball reference are the player IDs in OOTP. Very useful for importing players. So let's look up 1922 MLB. Okay, the Giants won the World Series that year. So let's just look at the Giants. And let's look at their pitching staff. Okay, and they had okay, it looks like if you cobble these other folks together, it looks like you're running a 4-man staff, 4.5-man staff. Right? If 37 games, then we have at least 1, 2, 3 full-time starters with parts of 3 others. Let's see another team from that year. Okay, they beat the Yankees in the World Series. Let's see what the Yankees are running. Okay, they're running a 5-man staff. Now they're running 2 relief pitchers, but these are 5 pitchers with at least 28 starts. So that is a 5-man rotation. And I'm sorry, I don't have it to show you on screen, but I do have it screenshotted on my phone. And and again, I'm not trying to throw shade on that slide. I've been using it since I started playing OTP. I just find it's interesting that there's a bit of a discrepancy there. In 1922 is at the beginning of Rebirth. And Rebirth is at 3 starting pitchers, high pitch counts, pen usage rare but not unheard of. So Tongmado says, that sounds odd. When I played 1911, they had all 3-man rotations. 1920 and 1924, I thought used 4-man. Yeah, but I look at this BREF and I look at what the game engine is. Oh, sorry. Let me show you BREF. This is what I'm looking at with the Yankees. They have 5 starters, all with 28 or more starts. So to me, that sounds like a 5-man rotation. Now they're definitely right about the low bullpen usage, right? They have two relievers, one of whom only threw 16 innings. So, in fact, I don't know where all the where the other innings are coming from. It's their other innings are coming from the other starters. The 5 games that Shockey did not start, the 6 games that Hoyt did not start, the 17 games that sad Sam Jones did not start. So their starters are also their bullpen. Right, but you can't deny these game started numbers. It does look like a 5-man rotation. And when you go into the base engine and plug in 1922, like we did last night, right, it said 5-man rotation. Now in 1901, it says 4-man rotation. So let's look up 1901. Sorry, Tongmado says, check any other team. Okay. Let's just look up the AL. Let's look up Spores, Tigers. Okay, so they're running a 4-man rotation, but definitely not 3 because they all have 25 or more starts. Well, I would even say though, look at this. Like this is a flex, right? Their bullpen is flexing another at least another rotation spot. So I would say this is a 5-man rotation, but the fifth spot is flexed across a bunch of relievers. So to me, this looks like a 5-man rotation with the fifth starter being flexed across the pen. So now let's see what happens. We go some 1901. And again, I can't say this enough because I love that slide. I used it so much when I was starting. I still do. I'm not trying to say it's wrong. I'm not trying to throw shade at it. I was just surprised that the base game is putting up something that does not align with that slide. So in fact, that slide says 3, the base game says 5. So I ran my tournaments with a 4-man rotation. And maybe it's coincidence, but it's the best PTCS I've had, I think maybe ever. But it's a sample size of 1. Who knows? Okay, here's Pittsburgh. They won the NL pennant. This is 1901 now. They look like they have, again, this looks like Tom Mato called it 4.5. This looks like 4.5, maybe 3.5, you could say. Maybe 3 2/2. Right? Like Lever's only getting 20 starts, and then you got 10-10, and then another 10 scattered across the pen. So basically, it looks like 3.5 with another half made up of like spare parts, kind of. Let's look at another team in 1901. Let's check the NL this time. Cardinals. Let's look at the Cardinals. Very similar. It looks like 3.5 and a half. 3 2/2 is what I'm going to call these in 1901. But again, like it's 3 2/2 in season play where you have days off and things like that. In tournament play, I think you got to call this 4, right? If you're not getting days off, I think I can't look at this and not call it 4. I mean, look, I'm not going to put out my own slide. I'm not trying to unseat that slide. I think it's a super valuable slide. I want every new player to see it. I just, I, I just can't get past like it doesn't sync up to me. So Tom says, I know in the more recent history, 70s or 80s are running 5-man rotation, but if there are travel days or whatever, the fifth starter would get skipped for sure. Yeah, and that's why there's that setting, right? Always start highest rested because if your fifth starter is fully rested, but so is your ace, you go right back to your ace. So it'd have 4 pitchers with high 30 starts, and the fifth guy has like 18. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and so that's a 5-man rotation, and it looks like 4.5. But that goes to my point. Like this looks like a 4-man rotation, not 3. Right? It looks like the fourth guy isn't getting his full share of starts. But then there's also another half rotation spot where this like these fractional starts from everybody. So anyway, I that was another thing that I thought was interesting when we are doing that sim last night. And we see it again tonight, right? We're running 1901 here, and it says 4-man rotation. And by the time you get to 1901 on that slide, it clearly is 3-man. Um so yeah, it is making me rethink how closely I follow that slide. But again, it's real baseball versus base game versus perfect team. And there are going to be differences as you go from one to the next. So Anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I do want to make sure people are, you know, have their best sliders and best kind of strategy in their tournament play and in their base game play. Um, anyway, we're going to lock these league totals because we want to keep everything unnerfed. If you are not familiar with these modifiers and why it's important that we have them set to one, please watch my League Full of Babe Ruth stream. It will explain to you why we're doing this. It keeps the game from messing with your simulation in the interest of trying to keep the stats, the league stats, true to what happened in that year. Um, Beyond that, like please check out the VOD. It's very clear and it's very fun. Okay, so we set a 1901 run environment. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and make sure we make every pitching staff. We ask the AI to set up every pitching staff with this run environment. See, now they're sleeping with 5. I wonder if I'm not giving them enough freedom to. What if I clear pitching staff first and then ask them to set pitching staff? It's not going to. It's staying with 5-man. Typical starting rotation size 4. Tuckmato says I've never used less than 4-man rotation any area for tournaments. Yeah, I see. I have. When I used to play Dead Ball Gold in PT24, I used to use a 2-man rotation. Um, and I only did that when I could micro and make sure that no one was fatigued, and they were never fatigued. Which is another reason I was surprised that the base game says 4 and 5 pitchers, because I was running 2-man rotation in tournaments, and I was winning those tournaments. I was doing pretty well in them, and I that's a trick I learned from Doctor Dynastic, because he was a big proponent of the Gold Dead Ball tournament in PT24. Okay, I'm wondering why these pitching staffs are not switching over to 4-man. Right? This general AI roster setting says typical rotation size 4. All right, so I go to the average Angels. They're a raw movement 100 team. Every pitcher, including their bullpen, has raw movement 100. And I say, okay, let's go to your pitching staff and actions. Bench coach, give me your staff. And it's keeping a 5-man rotation. Hmm. Oh, so I say this was the bug you were running into a few weeks ago. What if we do this? I'm kind of curious now. We'll go back to the quick start if we have to. Let me try this. Let's look at your roster. Check league settings screen. Okay. AI. Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. I'd much rather you let me know if you think you saw something before I do something kind of drastic, which is I'm actually thinking about letting the AI. There's this function here where you can say ask AI to set up your complete team. Now, usually what that does is it sends people to the reserve roster, brings up people from the reserve roster, but there's no reserve. So I'm hoping it just changes the pitching staff. If this messes it up, I'll just restart the quick start. You misread the automatic adjust strategy for the next season, right? I misread that too. I thought I had to check that box as well. All right, let's see what happens here. Now let's look at their pitching staff. Yes! Success! Now it's a four-man rotation. And I can ask it for a pitching staff, and it goes to this more normal setup. So Smiley Face Jane, I think does this workaround work for you too when you said you ran into this bug? So we have to go back out to the rosters. We have to do action ask AI to set up complete team. Then when we go into the pitching, they're back to a four-man rotation. And then we ask and see how it's got this weird thing where it's like the starters in here and everyone's middle relief and one long relief. Then if we say ask bench coach for staff, now we get a stopper, middle relief with secondary roles. This is exactly what we want. It's a little bit of extra work, but it's going to be worth it, I think. What's the other team I changed? Oh, it's the Mets. Why did I jump to the Mets? That's weird. Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? I wonder if when I ask the bench coach then assumes he has to stay within these parameters I've set, including the five-man rotation. I That's not what I mean, but if that's what the game, that might be how the game interprets it. So let's do all these first. That's the way to do it. We'll do all these first. We ask the AI to set up the entire organization because then we can just click through on this screen. See, I'm telling you, I've been playing this game for over a decade, and every time I do one of these sims, I still learn something new. I was going to say I'm a little concerned that these pictures are so good, but then I realized it's because this is the raw movement 550 team. These are supposed to be average pitchers. Okay, now I can go into the pitching staffs. Okay, this one was already done. This one needs to be done. Uh-oh. Again, the Mets, they're not fixing their thing. One stars instead of five stars? Was that the Raw Movement 100 team? Look, the Mets are the only team that doesn't get fixed when we do this. God, it sucks being a Mets fan. The Mets are so weird, so overpaid, and so underperforming. And they won't fix it. Come on, look, everyone else, when I ask the bench coach for staff, fixes it. How come you're not fixing it? I asked for your bullpen. Okay, let's try to clear the pitching staff and try again. Oh, dang it. Why aren't you working? That's so weird. Every other staff gets fixed when we do that. You can click off use. Where am I looking at? Use. Does bench coach have different tendency than the other teams? I don't think so. Maybe I didn't standardize the bench coaches. So talk me, what am I clicking off? Bottom left corner. Use starting pitchers in relief. No, I want to allow that though, because we've created 6 starters, so 2 of them have to go somewhere. So I'm going to leave it as is. I appreciate that suggestion, though, Takmedo. For some reason, though. Wait, is this the only team that has that? Oh, it is. It is. It's the only team that has that. All the other teams have it as set as no. Yeah, you're right, Takmedo. Thank you. Good catch. Why are the Mets so weird? Wait, why did it go? It wants to do it. It wants to do it. It turns it back to yes. Why is my bench coach so weird? That is so weird. Mets gonna Met. Mets gonna Met, man. Unbelievable. Even in a computer simulation, the Mets are gonna Met. Ridiculous. I can't believe it. All right, thank you, Takmedo. Yeah, cause Mets, exactly. Okay, I think everything is ready to go now. So let's save this game. And let's quick save this in case we want to rerun it. And Clay Dog strikes again because we are still naming this roster Adam Dunn V3. This is 1901 run environment, neutral ballparks, and pitching staff set by AI. Okay. Oh, so Clay Dog used a point redemption I created that you can rename a team in the save, and he wanted to rename the save, so I let him do that. And his initial name was should I roster Adam Dunn, because he was watching this experiment to see if he should roster Adam Dunn based on what he saw in the home run results here. And I think he said he did roster Adam Dunn. But I would too, because if I see that the home runs allowed in 2023 is 58 and it only drops to 39, yeah, heck yeah, I'm still going to play Adam Dunn. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to run some commercials so that I can refill my water, take a quick bio break, and then not be interrupted for the sim. So, and oh yeah, this is your warning for the form. Please complete your forms. Use the commercial ad time to do that, and I will be closing the form when I get back. All right. Thanks, y'all. All right, I think we might be back from ads. Is that right? Are we back? Looks like we're back. All right, we have I think we have a record number of participants in our pack giveaway tonight. I usually say we have probably the best pack giveaway odds in all of OOTP and Twitch, but we have 8 entrants tonight. Um, is anyone still working on their responses? I will hold off on closing the form if someone is about to hit submit. Now, this is an unusual one. I rarely go into these thinking I don't know what's going to happen. Now, several times it did, but this is one where like I do not know. All right, no one's responding about not about needing more time, so I am going to close the form and we'll take a look at the responses before we start the sim. We'll look at them anonymously for now, and then I'll just show the Twitch IDs when we get down to picking our winners here. Well, not picking our winners, but identifying our winners, I guess is the better way to say that. Okay, so the form is closed. While I get the spreadsheet right, I will tell you my thought is I do think home runs are going to be nerfed to the extent that those ratios we saw that were consistent between 2023 and 1922, as you go from elite HRA to average HRA to below average, I do think that's going to fall apart because there's just going to be so few home runs hit. But as for the rest, I don't know. All right, so here are our responses. Oh, by the way, I missed it, but Jack Rabbit's PCK PAX only team, I suppose. There, thank you for the follow. All right, here are our responses. The league leader in home runs allowed will pitch for which team? And we have a wide range of responses here. We have every team represented, mostly 100s, a 200, but some 400s and 550s, some bold predictions here. Tiebreaker number one will, unless it's a 250 or 550, we will need a tiebreaker. So we will go to the league ERA leader will pitch for which team. And again, I very surprised. There's some 250, many 250s in here, some 400s and a 550. Tiebreaker number two: how many home runs will be given up by the league leader in HRA? We've got anywhere from 12 to 45. And then tiebreaker number three: how many pitchers down the list of HRA will we have to go before we see a team 400? And anywhere from 10 to 33. I think that's one of the more uh, interesting questions. I think that's a fun one that we came up with. And then I'm not going to show the last one, which is misnumbered. It is tiebreaker number four, but I won't show that one because we'll hold off on that unless we really need it, or until we're done, we'll take a look at the responses. Tom Matos thinks the home run league leader, this is you're talking about hitters, I think, will have 7 home runs. Well, if that's the case, that will have big implications on the HRA league leader too. All right, let's see what happens, and we'll all keep that Tom Mato prediction in the back of our minds here as we go into the sim. All right. I did save this, right? And I did save the quick start, I'm pretty sure, but let's just do that just in case. Okay. And we'll go to the standings page. As always, this is a 2022 sim with 1901 settings. So because it's a 2022 schedule, we get a little sampler of a couple of games in March. Wow, look at the AL. Everyone's 1-1, and the NL, 250 and 550 are in the lead. Again, there's no interleague play, so these are 52 separate experiments running at the same time. All right, now we're going to get a full month here. Now, again, there's a reason we don't use the standings anymore to determine which attribute is most important or does the best or whatever it might be. There's just too much noise associated with standings. So we're going to go look at the pitching stats. But this is still fun to look at. So 1 month in, it's not quite chalk yet. So we'll go another month and see what happens. Okay, so the NL is looking like you might expect, where it's going from 550 down to 400 all the way down to 100. But third through fourth place are only separated by 3 games. In the AL, we still have Team 400 leading the division, 8 games ahead of Team 550, but they are separating from the 250 and 100 teams. I don't feel like OT has been crashing more lately. Um, I haven't had that problem with my face chain, but I usually have to reboot before I get to that point because my computer sucks so bad. So I'm not the best, probably not the best person to answer that question. Okay, let's go to the All Star break. As always, we'll get to make fun of the AI for picking terrible pitchers for the All Star team. Oh, see, my computer just gave a message. I'm running low on storage space. So let me see if there's anything I can delete here. I don't use this computer for much besides OOTP and streaming, so I don't know what I might have on here that is taking up so much space. Oh, I know what part of it is. Before I learned how to export streams to YouTube, I think I was downloading them. Okay, so that's something I can delete. I can hopefully I can deal with that later. 10 years of OTF? No, this actually I bought this when I got OTP 24, I think. So yeah, it's not it's not 10 years of Yeah, AW. Laptop Hound was very kind to raid into us tonight, so we have a pretty big audience. Checking out our shenanigans, our late night shenanigans. Okay, so at the All Star break, uh, we are a little. Okay, this is crazy. The AL, the top is what you'd expect 500 and 550 and 400. But the bottom, I mean, they're flipped, but they're only 3 games apart. Okay, that might be noise. But in the NL, the 400 team is in last place, 8 games behind. And the 100 and 250 teams are really hanging in there with the 500, 550 team. All right, let's see what's going on with the All Star teams here. All right, AL fan voting results. Let's look at the pitchers. We got a two 550s, two 400s, and a 250. Who's that 250 working its way in there? Uh, 6 and 11, 53 Ks, 53 walks, 65 Ks, 3.03 ERA. This is one of the more reasonable stat lines for an AI fan voting result. Let me save this. So I use that little copy button and I paste it into a notepad file. I just try to keep all the awards and all-star stuff as part of the record for each experiment. Ooh, my audio really broke up there. It did not like me opening my notepad file. So, man, if Notepad is going to tax your system resources, that's pretty sad. Okay, so let's look at the NL. And as always, let me know if you see something odd in the voting other than the AI being the AI. Wow, two 100 teams making the top five in voting. That's interesting. All right, and then let's see who was actually chosen. Back in the day, Smiley Face Jane didn't really know about Notepad, so I took all the player IDs and stuff by hand when I did historical imports. Um, Average starter 3 gets voted in. There's a 250 of several, so 40 means 400, 225 means 250. Like real life note cards that you still have. That is awesome. Check out this 100 with a 359 and a 1.27 whip. That already is a clue to me that HRA is not mattering here. Sometimes these 100 players get in because of some weird, inexplicable AI voting, but that's a legit stat line. All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves though. Let's watch the home run contest as we always do. Oh, sorry, got to sim one more day to actually get to the All Star break. Show them in the Discord. We want to see pictures of your note cards. If I can find my old Stratomatic cards, I am definitely taking pictures and showing them in the Discord. All right. Some of our sims, this matters, but in most it doesn't matter, but I still like watching the results anyway. Oh, check it out. For some reason, all outfielders in the second round of the home run derby. Average outfielder 4 versus average outfielder 2 in the final. And average outfielder 2 takes it 9-8 in the final. All right, and then we'll quick play the All Star game and just kind of see what happens to the pitchers. Look at the Oriole. Thank you for the raid. Welcome, Raiders. We are, hope your stream went well, Ripley. I assume you're still doing your expose save. Let me show you all what we're working on today. It is a continuation of an experiment we did yesterday. You had one of those seasons. Oh no. All right, so last night we did an experiment where we did 4 different levels of HRA. So And in base game it would be raw movement. So Ripley says we won hella games, but some players were inexplicably bad. Does that mean they were bad enough that you didn't make the playoffs? That would be bad. Oh, you you still won 115 games. So if y'all aren't already following Ripley the Oriole, I highly recommend that you do. Ripley does a very entertaining expo save, but also does lots of interesting stuff in the base game too. And in fact, if you haven't seen it, Ezra Denny had both Ripley and I on Ezra's show where he asked us questions about our approach to experimenting in the base game, and I learned a lot from Ripley the Oriole that night. So highly recommend you check that out if you're interested in this stuff. So for the Raiders, last night we tested different levels of HRA or raw movement in the PTCS environment. So we did 1922 Polo Grounds. Everything else about the league is completely average and identical, and we had some good conclusions. Some of which led me to change my PTCS rosters the night before the tournaments. Tonight, we're going to test it in true dead ball environment, 1901. Does HRA matter in that environment? So that's what we're doing right now. So Ripley got some very low percentile performance with some of your favorite players. That's a bummer when you're doing a save and the players you like the most are just like not pulling their weight. That's always a bummer. All right, so we're just checking out the All-Star game. We're going to quick play it and then look at the box score and see how our pitchers did. So if you see a team called 100, or in the abbreviation, it'd be 10 for 100, N for NL, or A for AL. That means they have a raw movement. All the pitchers have a raw movement of 100. Oh, Solid Face Jane found the box where the note cards were, but it's actually been cleaned out. That's a bummer. It is awesome that you look, though. That's great. Ripley Dodo says also Juan Soto is finally cooked. Negative 1.4 WAR. Wow. Finishes more steals than Joe Morgan, though. How old is Juan Soto when he's cooked? Because I keep forgetting how young he actually is. Because he's been around forever and he's still pretty young. All right, let's check out these pitching stats. 43. All right. I don't necessarily think that's just being cooked. I think that's just like becoming a grandpa or whatever is happening in his life. Stole 30 bases as a 43-year-old man. That's amazing. Bechdel says, with the
Why do you
PTS
keep
environment you
following me
tested, was
around?
PBABIP as useless as it seemed in actual PTCS? I wish I could have an answer for you, Beck Dog, because as I was changing my roster, that's another question I had, which was if well, I mean, one thing we found was that HRA does matter more than I think a lot of streamers were letting on in their roster builds. Zoom 316, thank you for the follow. AW says PVAP always useless. Ripley says Monster is still rocked an 18% walk rate. Wow. That's amazing. So we did not test PBABIP at all. And one of the findings was in 1922 at the Polo Grounds, right? 1922, not quite dead ball. Polo Grounds, 1.2 home run modifier. That it was not as home run suppressing environment as I think many of us thought. So while HRA wasn't paramount, it was still moderately important. So that made me go back and rethink some of my pitching choices for PTCS. Bechdel thought it might have some impact because hits were up like 10% versus modern era, but no good pitchers in modern apparently are good in 1922. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's one thing we can continue to test, but once PTCS finished, I lost interest in testing 1922, but we'll still test stuff across eras like that, Beck Dog. Ripley says in solo play, PBABIP is the be all and end all, at least in my experience. Nothing will kill a pitcher more than having a 40 or 45 PBABIP. Uh, Great peripherals, crap ERA from a .350 BABIP against. Yeah, but I think perfect team might have different dynamics too, especially like in PT24. I kind of wish I'd been around streaming and doing these experiments in PT24 because I started playing Perfect Team in PT24 at the end of the cycle in December, and PBAP was huge in PT24. Um, and I think it's interesting that it changed so much in PT25. Smiley Jane, I wouldn't be surprised if it mattered slightly more, but probably much less than a lot of people were expecting. Bechdel says, I mean, I guess I shouldn't complain because I won. Oh, you won iron. Congratulations. Beckdog, I also did well in iron this time around. I finished round 3 and round 4 in iron with my two teams, which are I think the deepest runs I've had in PTCS. AW says in AW's test, and I think AW you're referring to PBE tests, is that right? It mattered, but good enough other stuff and pitchers were still very good. They were worse though, but I tested 250 versus 1. Hmm. Yeah, and I think one reason I had a hard time adjusting to PT25 is I was still overweighting PBABIP from PT25. Oh, just a random OOTP 25 test. Got it. So one PBABIP wasn't awful. All right, let's see if any of our starters got especially rocked or did especially well. Oh, I know why my drive is so full. I have OBS set to record every stream. And I don't think I need that because I'm grabbing every stream from uh I'm grabbing it from Twitch and exporting it to YouTube. So I'm gonna stop recording every stream from now on. That's why my storage is full. Got it. Got it, got it, got it. All right, let me delete one of these right now and free up some space. Who trying to ball? How you doing tonight? How was your PTCS, by the way? Smiley Face Jane says defense will always be most important for reducing opponent BABIP. And that's actually something we should test too. How much impact defense can have on PBABIP or BABIP. I wonder if it matters more in the base game, like Ripley is saying, because PT has like unrealistically good defense versus what a normal base game would have. That is true. And I think a lot of that's because if you're partly trained in something, you get full credit for your full potential defense, right? And Oh, Huchanball hasn't made one yet. I'm surprised Huchanball. You seem very active in the game. Okay, I'm not seeing anything in the All Star pictures here that's jumping out at me. So wait, what was the score here? Oh, 1-0. Wow, we really are in dead ball here. So getting rocked means giving up 1 run. So that would be average starter number 4, who is from the 250 raw movement team. All right, so let's just go back to the sim then and finish out the season and give away our packs. Oh, who tried to pull the David Price last night? That's awesome. Once 103 Brandon Inch comes out. Oh, that Gary Sheffield card. I grab him whenever I can in the nearly perfect draft. All right, let's do the rest of July here. And so, for those of you rating in from Laptop Pound and from Ripley the Oriole, um, these kinds of experiments are one of the main things we do in this stream at night. I usually stream at 10 p.m. Pacific time, most days except Wednesdays. But then we also have some ongoing saves of like leagues we're creating. And I also do some sims based on kind of things in the news or things that come up during Twipped or during other streamers' shows. And for all those, I create some kind of guessing game for a 10-pack giveaway. And so we have a good time checking out the sims, trying to predict what's going to happen. And the crazy thing is, no matter how crazy the simulation is, and it's stuff that no one's ever simulated before most times, like adding 5 major leaguers who have lost fingers to the 2023 Mets and simming that. Although I didn't, to be fair, I don't think I had pack giveaways back then. For some reason, Smiley Face Jane is always in the running for these guessing games. Even if it's something like no one's ever simmed before. I don't know how that keeps happening. All right, we're at the end of July. Let's see. The 550 Raw movement teams are in first place, so that's good. But oddly, this 400 team is still in last place in the NL. But again, these standings can be misleading, so we're going to hold judgment until we look at the pitching stats at the end of the season. All right, let's see. We are now through August. And yeah, for some reason, the 250 team is outperforming the 100 team in the AL. And in the NL, that 400 team is still stubbornly in the cellar. But to be fair, 100, 250, and 400 are only separated by 3 games. Let's sim to the end of the regular season. Oh, who trying to ball? You went to a ball game today? That's awesome. I'm in Portland, Oregon. We only have minor league baseball here, so we try to get out to see the Portland Pickles when we can. All right, with 1 game left in the season, those standings have held. Yeah, the 400 raw movement Phillies are in the cellar of the NL. Yeah, so I saying I would also be interested in a basketball set like that football set we got. All right, we are done with the regular season. Let's do the postseason, and then we'll go look at the stats, and we'll figure out who won our pack giveaway today. 7 packs for first place, 3 packs for second place. All right, so let's go to Oh, I need to finish one more day before we get the tree. I like to use the tree. Here's the playoffs. All right, here's our playoff tree, and let's send the first round. We've got surprisingly the 100 Raw movement Braves are facing the 550 Nationals, and then in the AL, the 400 Mariners are facing the 550 Rangers. Next playoff round. Okay, there was almost a huge upset there. The 100 Raw movement Braves took the Nationals, the 550 Nationals, to a game seven. But we do have both 550 teams in the World Series now. And again, the postseason is even a smaller sample size than the regular season, so weird things can happen. All right, the 550 Rangers win it over the 550 Nationals. Now, this doesn't mean much, but the season stats do mean a lot. Now, I kind of liked how we did it yesterday, which is I'm going to go to the team stats first, the team pitching stats. Let's take a look at those and see if we can, um, identify any insights from this, and then we'll go to the stats we need for the pack giveaway. So let me screenshot some things. I screenshot this, and then we'll screenshot the overall standings, which are a little odd. But again, that's why we don't go by those anymore. We go by the team and individual pitching stats, mostly things like WHIP or strikeout per nine. What was I looking for? Oh yeah, the stats. Ooh, my system's getting really sketchy already. Stats. Team stats. Team pitching stats. Okay, now these are not in order because of the weird way the standings finish. So you got to pay attention to what's on the left side here. But okay, as predicted, the ratios are different now. But the biggest jump is still the biggest percentage jump is still from 550 to 400. But the biggest quantity jump is when you go from 400, which is average, to 250 below average. And that holds true. Yeah, it's still 5 to 26 when you go to in the NL. Even though standings are weird, if you look at the home run numbers, they still hold to that pattern. 5 home runs given up by team 550, 26 home runs given up by team 400, so 5x, and then 74 given up by team 250, which is about 3x. Now the ratios are way down, and that's what I predicted because when you have so many fewer home runs, you're not going to have room for that 10x, but you have room for 5x to go from 550 to 400. Um, the interesting thing though is how well Team 100 did. They gave up way fewer home runs than Team 250, even though Team 250 theoretically should have given up more. To me, that is a potential sign that there are so few given up that some small um, random number generator patterns or um, just natural variance can cause it's within the realm of noise, I think, because it's the home runs hit are so low. So I'm going to pay attention to chat here because chat often identifies interesting things in the data that I might have missed. Talk Beta was close on your home runs, off by one. All right, let me screenshot this and then I'm not getting that sweet, sweet screenshot sound. So let's see, did the ERAs follow the pattern? Did the OPS follow the pattern? 550 did have the best ERA by a small margin. I still don't think I got my screenshot. Let me try again. Oh, you know what it is? I wasn't in OPS. Now I wasn't in the OTP. Now I am. Okay, I got my screenshot. Did you ever do Tigers All Stars versus Royals All Stars game? No, I asked them when they wanted to do it and what kind of format they wanted, like number of games and stuff, and no one ever got back to me. So, uh, there's only so much I can do for D Block and Spore to make that happen. But that's a good point we're trying to evolve. We should try to revive that. I think it'd be fun to do. So looking at AL, which actually like was more in the pattern we were expecting, the ERA does increase. Yeah, if you recall the 250 100 are out of order, it goes from 346 to 386 to 407 to 416. So that tracks. Um, BABIP is just noise. Everyone's just kind of in a jumble. Who try to ball talk some shit to D Block tomorrow and get it going? Yeah, so in general, I think we're seeing similar pattern as before. Just the jumps from elite to average, average to below average are not as great as before. Uh, but like last time, below average and terrible are not that different when it comes to home runs allowed, which to me is kind of surprising. Um, all right, let's start pulling up some stats here, and then let's go to the form and figure out who our pack winners are. Let me unhide just the Twitch ID column. Give me 1 minute here. I'm unhiding that column, or I'm hiding all the columns and just hiding everything but that first column. Okay, here we go. So the first question is the league leader in home runs allowed will pitch for which team? And by league leader, that's the person who gave up the most home runs. Who trying to ball just pulled a diamond combi last night that no one wants, so can't sell it and already have the regular cards. So missions useless Ed Smartwood. All right, let's see here. Hey, Tomato, what did you? Oh, yeah, you said you're off by one. You said seven, maybe nine. The league leader in home runs hit 10. This is way different than 1992 in the Polo Grounds. So I feel completely validated in going back to bring in pitchers with a little bit more HRA last night for PTCS. All right, let's see where we are. 23 home runs allowed. Starter number 6 from team 25N. That's a 250 raw movement rating. So let's see who we have who guessed 250. Oh, we only had one. We don't need to go to the tiebreakers. The winner is Flying WV Pack, but we need a second place winner for the 3 packs. So we need to keep going. So for second place, no one guessed 250, right? Flying WV Pack did, but that's for first place. So they've clinched first place. For second place, no one guessed 250. So let's go to the second question was tiebreaker no. The league leader in ERA will pitch for which team? The league leader in ERA pitched for team 550. And by quite a margin, they won too, by 0.49. The next pitcher after that was 3.32. It is interesting that two 100 pitchers are in the top 5 for ERA, which again leads me to feel that HRA becomes increasingly less important the further you go into dead ball. All right, so the league leader in the ERA pitched for team 550. We only had one person for tiebreaker one guess 550. So they are our second place winner. Player 4U21. Congratulations, you win the 3 packs. Let's just keep going though, just to see. The next tiebreaker was how many home runs will be given up by the league leader. The answer to that was 23. So 23. The closest guess, wow, no one guessed in the 20s. Let's see, this 16 is 7 away. That's the closest, 7 away. And that 16 was guessed by Clay Dog. So Clay Dog would have been third. And then how many pitchers down that list do we have to go before we see a 400 rated pitcher? So to do that, we need our sortable stats. And we're going to go by home runs allowed. All right, before we get to a 40 pitcher, here's our first 40 pitcher. Wow, it's pretty low. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 pitchers before we get to a 400. That's compared to 30 in 2023. So that, oh, someone guessed it exactly. Who is that? AW guessed that one exactly. 14 pitchers down the list. And then how many pitchers? How many pitchers in the top 7 HRA leaders will be from Team 100? So for that, we need to go back to the pitching leaders. Our HRA leaders. 1, 2, 3. Only 3. So 2 people nailed that exactly. That would be player 4U21 who already won, and Smiley Face Jane. Of course, we couldn't have a pack giveaway standings analysis without Smiley Face Jane's name popping up. But our 2 winners tonight of the 7 and 3 packs respectively are um, Flying WV pack and player 4U21. I will let OOTP developments know, and you should get your packs within 24 to 48 hours. And thank you to OOTP developments for those packs. So I think that's it for tonight. That was fun experiment. Very similar to what happened in 2023 and in 1922. But the further we go back towards dead ball, the more the results just get squished because there are just fewer and fewer home runs. And so while the pattern holds that going from elite to average is a big jump in home runs, and then average to below average is a 2 to 3x increase in home runs. The number of home runs just gets smaller and smaller just because the base gets smaller and smaller. So it still matters, but it matters. It matters relatively speaking, but in absolute terms, it does start to matter so little that yeah, maybe you don't need to care when you get to 1901. But I think it was pretty clear in 1922 you still had to care about HRA. There were just still too many home runs being hit. But yeah, it was good to see that in 1901, tonight's sim, it kind of did show that at that point the home run totals get so low, right? Your home run leader's hitting 10. So yeah, okay, I'm going to give up 4 home runs instead of 2 home runs because my HRA sucks. That's a big difference than giving up 20 home runs versus 40 home runs because your HRA sucks, which is essentially what we're talking about here. So I think I'm going to call this a success. This is a good experiment. This series was really good. I think it taught us a lot. And it did help me, I think, put my roster together for PTCS. So, yeah. All right. Hope everyone had a good time. Laptop Hound and Ripley the Oriole, thank you for the raids. And let's find someone to raid you into. It is Saturday night, so Ophi will not be streaming. Let's see if I doubt it, but maybe because of PTCS, maybe someone's up late streaming OTP 25. Let's check for that first. No one else is streaming. Oh, you know what? I think this is the first night of the sumo tournament. Okay, so there's this streamer, Midnight Sumo, who's American, maybe Canadian actually, and they show Japanese sumo tournaments, but they do commentary over them in English. And they explain to you what's going on. There's a lot of like ceremony and stuff that happens that they explain, and they do the play by play over top of it in English. So I think I'm going to send you guys there tonight because there is a sumo tournament going on right now. Um, I don't hear Midnight Sumo that's commentating over it right now, which would be a bummer because then I'd send you over there and you won't be able to understand what's happening. Um, yeah, if it's not elite, not worth carrying, that's probably a good way to put it. And also, if you're gonna pitch a guy with like bad HRA, you might as well pitch a guy with terrible HRA because it doesn't seem to get much worse. Um, the 100 raw movement and the 250 raw movement guys just seem to be a mission. Oh, good. He is doing English commentary over the Japanese sumo. So if you've ever been interested in sumo, this is a great way to watch it because you have someone in English explaining to you what's going on. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned something. Um, I'm always looking for ideas for streams, for experiments, for leagues to set up. In fact, I have a new one I want to experiment with next time we stream. So yeah, come back and visit us. 10 p.m. Pacific most nights except Wednesdays.